Hi everyone! Today we are going to be colouring this gorgeous image by Christine Karen. It's a freebie and I'll leave the link in the description below. So we're going to be using Arrtx products today. I have got the pastel marker set. This is one of the marker sets which has a chisel and a bullet nib. And then here are the colours that you get in that 40 set. They're all pastel colours. And then we also have this wallet of different pastel colours from Arrtx. And these ones feature a chisel nib again, but also a beautifully thick brush nib, which is actually my favourite type of alcohol marker nib to colour with. Here are the colours that come in the 24 wallet set. Again, all pastels. I've chosen the pastel colours for this particular image. I thought it would go really nicely. Then, of course, we're using the Arrtx coloured pencils, which I have reviewed already on my channel. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and watch it. They are beautiful pencils. I really, really like them. And here are all the colours that come in this set of 72. So I'll be using marker for the base and pencil on top for detail. And the first three markers I'm going to use are 411, 132 and 131 from both the wallet and the big boxed 40 set. So just put in a base layer of that lightest colour down first, and then using the next darkest colour to plot out and map out all of our shadow details on the face. So that will be just over her eyes, down the side of her cheeks, everywhere you can see I've put it there. And now I'm popping on that lovely rose peach colour to give her a little bit of a blush, and going over the whole thing with the lightest colour. So every time I plot down some shadow points or some blush, I'll always go over it again with the very lightest colour that we used on the base, and that just helps them all to blend together and just fade out the details a little bit. We don't want them to be too harsh, like you can see now on her arms, that would be too harsh. So I'm just going over it with that light base colour, just to try and blend it all in a little bit. But it is a very subtle skin tone anyway, and I will be coming in with some pencil just to deepen up those shadow areas a little bit so it doesn't look so flat and so milky. But just working on the arms and the hands, which have obviously more details, really, details to the fingers. So with the light peach pencil, I'm now coming in, like I said, and plotting out all of those shadow areas again. But using the pencil allows us to put a little bit more pigment down and get a bit more depth to the shadows. So that's all I'm doing here. Just across the dimples of the cheeks, around the nose, quite important to define the nose. And underneath the hairline, anywhere where shadow would naturally fall onto the face. Now it's really good to have this image in grayscale and line art. So both of them are available to download for free. I'm colouring on the line art version, but I'm using the grayscale version, a picture of it on my phone, to see where the shadows would go or just help me a little bit. So Christine has given both versions, line art and grayscale, and I prefer to colour line art because I want to put my shadows in with the colour rather than grey. But it is really handy to use that grayscale version to plot out all of your different shadow areas. So now with the blush pink, we're going to just pop those rosy cheeks back in. And again, just really define them. You can see that the colour is a lot more noticeable. And even though we are only using very light pressure, we are beginning to build up the layer of colour. It's still a very delicate skin tone, but it's just got that extra little bit of depth. I'm putting a bit of it on her eyelids and on her lips as well. So next we're using the Pale Azure from the markers and the Cloud Blue pencil to do her eyes. And I want them to be a really nice pale blue, but I think it was just a bit too pale. So I've got the indigo blue out and I'm adding in a couple of details to the iris area, around the edge of the pupil and around the edge of the eye itself. And I'm just blacking out those pupils so that we can pop our highlights in. Now with the 20% warm grey, I'm just making sure that our eyeballs have a bit of shading on them, and finally using a white gel pen to add those highlights in. With the other warm grey, the darker one, I'm just adding in a few more shadows, and then we've got the 140 light orange. This is a base layer for our cherry, and then the Crimson Lake pencil to add in the darker shadow areas. So again, I'm just using the grayscale image to find our shadow areas to make it look really realistic. Then using the poppy red, we can start to fill it in, and finally the light peach as our highlight colour. Now we can colour the stalk with our lime peel and olive green pencils, very quick and easy. And I thought I'd just go back in with a bit of the dark purple pencil just to redefine the shadows, make it look a little bit more deeper. So now we've got the little necktie, and I'm using the exact same colours that I used on the eyes. I like to do that when I'm colouring pages. I like to keep the palette limited if possible, but also tie in certain elements of clothing, skin, hair, nails, eyes, all that kind of stuff, tie them in together. So I'll use the same colours at different points on the page. This helps to keep it really cohesive and balanced to the eye as well. So I started off by plotting all of the shadow points with the indigo blue, then the cloud blue, just to sort of haze that area out so that it doesn't look so solid and linear. So we're just trying to blend it and make it look a bit softer, really, because I think that indigo is quite a dark colour obviously, and it can make it look quite harsh. So the cloud blue really does act brilliantly as the transition colour between the very pale marker colour that we put down on the base and the very deep dark indigo blue pencil. So yeah, it's a really nice combination. All of these Arrtx tools seem to work beautifully together. The markers, to be honest with you, are just as good as any other alcohol marker you can get on the market. I feel like you'll never beat the nib of a Copic brush, but these Arrtx pens are really, really good, really nice to use, and they're not at such a high price point. They are definitely better on the wallet. So if you're looking for alcohol markers that come in loads of different colours, they've got so many different sets, and the packaging is really spot on. You can get them in boxes, in wallets, all sorts of kind of different packaging, and they've got tons and tons of colours and curated colour sets as well. So I'll leave the link in the description if you want to have a look at their range. But yeah, really, really impressed. So using the 20% and the 50% warm grey again, just like I did on the eyes for the shadows of the top. So just underneath the necktie, the ribbon, the bow, and just around the edges as well, using that darker warm grey first to plot in the deepest shadows, and then the lighter warm grey, again, just like the cloud blue, as that transition sort of mixer colour that helps you go from the dark grey to the white of the top. It just gives it a little bit of shadow, a little bit of interest to the eye. Then I've got a whole load of colours here, a rainbow. We've got crimson red, yellow orange, canary yellow, spring green, parrot green, true blue, and I think it was violet. And I think that was it. I'd had to go really, really quick then. So I'm using this to create a rainbow cupcake. There's nothing better, I don't think, than a rainbow iced cupcake, and it looks really, really effective. Also, because the rest of the image is quite a delicate pastel, not very bright image, I think using this bold rainbow colour scheme just on the cupcake really gives the image something to pop off of, and gives it a little bit of a focal point. You can see that that is the focal point that she's looking at, so it's also the focal point that we want to be looking at as well. So yeah, that's why I chose the rainbow colour scheme, and I'm just blending them in as best as possible. I don't always go in rainbow order. Sometimes I'll use the red next to the purple and so on, but it looks pretty good. Then for the actual cake, it's the burnt umber and the light umber, but I don't think that's quite dark enough, so I want to come in with the dark umber as well, just to create some shadow underneath the icing and around the cake case. Then we've got these three markers here, which are going to act as our cake case, but I want it to look quite, I hate this word, but moist. So I'm using an orange to act as the brown of the cake, but also layering over it with some purple for shadow. I'm then making her nails the same colour as the rainbow, always tying things in on the pages. That's always what I do. And then, of course, we've got some white gel pen dots, because why not? So next we are going to tackle the hair. Now, I did say I was going to use some purple in the hair. We've got the Parma Violet pencil and, of course, one of the alcohol markers for the base. So I'm covering the whole lot in the marker. I'm not being too precious about it, just making sure that I get those little flyaways in there as well, and layering a bit of the marker over itself for the darker areas. But we're going to do that in pencil anyway, so don't worry too much about that step if you're colouring along. Then I'm going to bring in that Parma Violet pencil and try and create some individual hair strands and the shadowed areas of the hair as well. Now you'll see once we get to the end of this that it is looking a little bit scrappy. You know, maybe you love it and you want to keep it there. I do go back in with the violet pencil, the darker purple, to pick out some of the shadows. So at the moment, to me, it was just looking a little bit rough and it didn't really do justice to the rest of the page. I'm really happy with how the rest of the page has turned out. It's definitely how I pictured it in my head, but I just wasn't happy with the scratchiness of the hair. I know that hair has to have texture, that's what gives it the look of being kind of realistic hair, but I just think it wasn't as neat and fluid as I wanted it to be. So once I've finished all of these Parma Violet bits, I will go back in with another layer of the alcohol marker and just try and touch it up, but it really wasn't working very well. So I knew that I needed a darker purple to come in there and make those shadows pop a little bit more. Just re-adding some of the white gel pen that came off when I put my hand all over it. And now I'm going to use a pan pastel. This is in pearlescent orange. They're gorgeous pan pastels. They're like a chalk pastel that's really pigmented, and I'm just laying it on all the way around to create a bit of a glow, and then using the fine pearl in white to kind of further bleach out that glow at the edges and make it a little bit more softer. So you can do that just to, again, soften the image and make it so that it's not so harsh around your subject. Then I'm taking my eraser, very fine point Tombow Mono eraser, and erasing some circles in the chalk pastel. So you won't be able to see this so much on the screen, but to the eye it does look really good. It ties in with the polka dots on her top. Again, I'm always about tying things in, and it does look really good in real life. So finally, I'm coming in with that violet pencil and trying to neaten up some of these shadows a little bit more. So I'm actually using the colour chart from one of the Arrtx marker boxes just to protect the pastel from being smudged by my hand, in case you wondered what that was. And yeah, I'm just trying to be a little bit more focused with where I'm putting shadows, still keeping the lines and the texture of individual strands of hair, but just again trying to deepen up the shadows. And you'll see from this side of her head to the other side, I think it's definitely made an improvement. It's still a pastel purple. It's not, you know, a really bold, vibrant, saturated purple. It is quite pastel, but it's just given it a little bit more depth, dimension and shape to the individual waves in her hair. So I'm glad I did that final step. It probably took the longest out of the whole thing to do, but I think it was worth doing. I hope you agree with me. And yeah, I've had a really good time using all of these Arrtx products together. This isn't a sponsored review or anything like that. I just thought that we would try and use some fairly budget materials all together. Also showing how to use alcohol marker base with pencil detail, and just see what you can achieve with cheaper things. You don't always need the most expensive materials, and things can still turn out beautifully. Now, this image was actually found on Colour It In, which is a Facebook page by, I think her name's Sue, and I should know this, I've spoken to her so many times, but you know my memory is terrible. And she is doing a challenge at the moment where you colour anything to do with cake or tea parties, and you can submit it, and it's just for fun. So if you want to pop over there, I'll put the link in the description, and I'll be submitting this as my entry. So here we are, all done. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I hope you are too, and I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Hopefully you found it useful, and I'll see you soon on Colour with Claire.